Dr. P.H. Martin Spectrite liquid acrylics, not to be confused with a lot of similar lines such as the Tech Drawing ink, the Synchromatic transparent watercolor, iridescent calligraphy colors, Hydrus fine art watercolor, Radiant concentrated watercolor, or Bombay India ink. Man, that is a lot of different very similar lines, my gosh. And what these liquid acrylics are, according to their website, it says Dr. P.H. Martin Spectrite Private Collection liquid acrylics are a brilliant, light-fast, waterproof acrylic that flows like watercolor. Our permanent archival grade fine art color is made from the finest ground pigments sourced from around the world, excellent on paper or canvas. Spectrite can be used on board, wood, or metal, works for illustration, calligraphy pens, airbrushing, designing, and technical pens. Now, I really personally doubt that you could use this on metal because it's liquid. I really just think it would beat up on metal, but what do I know? I've never tried it. That seems just kind of far-fetched to me. I'm going to be testing these out today for the first time. I decided I wanted to try to paint a little mouse in strawberry preserve drawing that I did because the colors within the set felt like a good match for this art. And speaking of the colors, in this entire Spectrite range, there are 36 colors. I have one set out of the 3. I believe this is the second set, meaning that I have 12 different ink colors to play with today. Now, because there were so many different options of similar inks by this brand, it was a little bit difficult for me to determine what the differences between all of them were. I mean, obviously the watercolor ink lines are going to be able to be reactivated with water, whereas other lines like this one are not going to be able to be reactivated with water. But I did see that there are certain lines that are apparently better for using with a dip pen or a brush or an airbrush. But this specific Spectrite brand states that it is best to be used with a paintbrush or airbrush. They have this little graphic on their website that says that they are pigment-based, archival grade, light-fast, waterproof, non-spreading, non-toxic. They have a dropper top, integrated palette, and this is 12 of 36 colors designed for use with brushes or airbrushes. This set was $59.99 for 12 of them, making them just under $5 each. They also have the same exact sets with bottles that are half the size for $39.99. Personally, I feel like this is a good deal for how much ink you're getting. You're getting quite a bit of ink in these, and they are very, very pigmented, so I kind of feel like these will last me quite a while if I continue to use them as is. But let's move on to the pros and cons. So I'm going to start with the pros. The first pro is that they are super, super, super pigmented. I found myself mixing in quite a bit of water with these inks and still having a lot of pigment to work with. At times, I had 2 or 3 times the amount of water compared to the amount of ink, and I was still really happy to use the ink with the amount of pigment I was getting. Another pro is that these inks claim to behave similarly to watercolor and look like watercolor, and I can attest to that I do believe that these do look very similar to using watercolor. The texture of the dried down acrylic was very similar to that of watercolor in my personal opinion. It might even be close to the way I like to use gouache personally, which is not straight out of the tube. I like to use gouache that is dried down and reactivated with water, and in my opinion, that kind of looks like this. Okay, another pro is that I believe that this color range is pretty decent. There are 36 colors in this entire range. In this specific set, I feel like I was able to get a decent amount of variety. If I was able to get individual bottles of these colors, I would not personally pick this exact color range because it is a little bit limited. But overall, in my opinion, the color range does have a pretty good selection. Another pro, or possibly a con, depending on how you work, is that they do not reactivate with water. If you're the kind of person that likes to work with thin, transparent layers, this might be good for you because it doesn't reactivate, so you would not have to worry about it mixing together. But on the other hand, if you're the kind of person that likes to use water to blend the colors together, you might not like this because you're not going to be able to get that smooth gradient effect that you can with watercolors if you use water to blend them. Okay, now moving on to the cons. The first con that I have, and this is not really a con against the brand, but I didn't get a set that had a white. So I had to make pink for the ears, and I tried really hard to make this work, but in the end I had to use regular gouache. The gouache doesn't stand out too much compared to the ink, but I really felt as though I was missing something by not having white included in this set. The next con is the biggest con in my opinion, and that is that it is extremely difficult to find for some reason. This specific line of ink isn't available as far as I can tell on Blick or Michael's website, so you're not going to be able to go into your average art supply store and look at the colors or hold it in your hand or pick out individual bottles. I had to order this entire set off of Amazon. I am also having an extremely difficult time trying to find, actually an impossible time, of being able to find where I can purchase any individual bottles of this ink, meaning that if I use one color up, I might have to purchase this entire set again, which is obviously not very cost effective. You can't even buy individual bottles directly from the company, so I am questioning whether or not individual bottles are available at all, which is really disappointing. I'm not happy about that at all. I should have done more research before I started liking these, because now that I do like them a lot and I cannot buy individual bottles, I'm a little bit disappointed. Okay, the next con is that this ink stains the paper very fast. I tried to quickly remove a spot of color I just placed down, and there was just no way to remove it. It instantly stains the paper, unlike gouache or watercolor where you have a few seconds where you can generally pick the color back up with a paper towel if you make a mistake. This isn't necessarily a super horrible con, but it is definitely not something I'm used to, and you have to be way more careful. Overall, my opinion of this ink is that I really do like it. It is super pigmented. I love the way this art piece came out. Colored pencils layered on top of this like a dream. I really loved the way that was. It was easier to draw on top of it with colored pencils than sometimes gouache can be, because the ink was thinner than gouache, and therefore you could get more texture from the paper, which makes it easier to use the colored pencils. I plan on using these a lot more in the future, but if I do run out of one, I'm not sure that I would be able to justify buying a whole entire another set to replace the single color. In conclusion, I am going to be using these while I have them, but I do not think that I will be repurchasing these again unless I can buy individual bottles. Okay, thank you so much for watching. I hope you guys like this video. Please consider subscribing to my channel. I am trying my best to get to 1,000 followers, and it would mean the world to me if you guys followed me. Okay, see you in the next video. Bye.